Sacred You. I'm your host, Reverend Patricia Caginello, and today we are back with Debra Engle, the instructor for our Writing Your Book That Matters, Spiritual Nonfiction 1 and 2 courses. So welcome, Deb.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so we've had a couple conversations already about this course, and there's two parts to the course. There's the Spiritual Nonfiction 1 and Spiritual Nonfiction 2. And we just want to say, we talked about it the last time, when we say spiritual, it's a very broad term, right? Spiritual, religious, consciousness, right? It's about conscious writing. It's about the writing the nonfiction books that have the information, the messages, right, for today, to be of help for today.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It could be spiritual. It could be inspirational, healing, your personal story of how you overcame a challenge. It could be so many different things, but it's just all about that personal message or that message of hope or growth or healing. It can look so many different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And Deb has put together these two phenomenal courses. So the series is Writing a Book That Matters. You can get the whole series, or you can get 1 or 2. We've talked about 1 in the past, and if you dig through the page, I'm sure you'll find those videos. And today we're going to talk about 2. We're going to talk about the energy of bringing your message to the completed manuscript, right? So 1 is about getting started, learning the writing tips and techniques to really craft a beautifully written book. But there's an energy, right, Deb, about actually then bringing the book to completion. Speak to that a bit.
Sure. Yeah, when you think about the energy that you have when you start a project, whether it's a book or something else, typically it's that enthusiasm and excitement and passion, and you just can't wait to get started. And then after you've worked on it for a while, you've put a lot of work into it, you've been crafting, you've been making it better, and then the energy that it takes to complete it, to go to the finish line is very different than what you had when you started. If you think about it as running a race, for instance, you start with all of that energy, and then over time, you're expending energy, so you need another boost of confidence and guidance and help, I think, sometimes, to get you over that finish line and help you feel like, yeah, I did it. I knew I could do it, and I got it done. And that's what this course is all about.
So this is 7 modules, and Deb is going to be sharing some writing tips and spiritual guidance tips today, also free for everyone, and we're going to dig into those. But the course is 7 more modules of information, the first one being free. And I just want to mention that because Deb and I both felt really strongly that we wanted to share as much information as we could. So the first whole module of the course, 1 of 7, is completely free. If you click on the course, go to free preview, you can, until October 31st, because then the course is no longer available for sale, you can dig in, work through, download all the materials in the first module completely free, in support of you in writing your manuscript. So Deb, having said that, there's 7 modules of guidance, right? And in the first Writing Your Book That Matters, in part 1, you give lots and lots and lots of tips and techniques about writing, how to write, right? Crafting a really beautifully developed story. What other types of tips and techniques could you share in 2? Where do you go after you've shared all that?
Sure. Yeah, the second course is really all about picking up where you left off. So maybe you've taken the first course and now you're ready to finish the book. Or maybe you have started a book on your own, and for whatever reason, you set it aside for a while. And now it's time to pick it up again and really dive back in. So it starts with helping you reconnect with that purpose and passion that you had at the beginning. But then we go into all of the things that you deal with once you've got, your book started. You've got maybe a rough draft, or you've been working toward a rough draft. So you've got some chapters, you've got stories, you've got material to work with. Now you're faced with those questions about things like, what do I leave in and what do I leave out? That's one of the biggest questions, really, in writing a book. How do I make my writing even stronger? So it's building on some of the tips and techniques that you already know or that you learned in that first course about how to tell a story, how to put a book together. And now it's how do you just raise that level to the next level higher? How do you tighten up your writing so that it really sings? How do you use some kind of advanced writing techniques? Just they're simple, they're easy, but they can really set your book apart from everything else out there. I even give you a whole revision checklist. And I can't tell you, this may seem like something that's sort of boring, but oh my goodness, with every book that I've written, I've wished that I've had something like this. It's a checklist that you use so that as you go through your book and you're really evaluating, how is it coming along? What do I need to change? What do I need to polish or add? It gives you a whole list of questions to ask yourself so that you can see what's missing, as well as, just what you want to make better. And then I give you the tips and techniques to make it better along the way too.
So, what's really awesome, besides your revision checklist, right, is that it's jam-packed, right? It's jam-packed with practices. It's not just you telling people how to do stuff. You've created exercises and practices and processes from your literally decades of experience. So you're a best-selling author. You're an award-winning author. You're an editor. You teach writing workshops. This isn't your first time around the block, right? So you have decades of experience. Plus, you're also a spiritual teacher. You've written the book, Let Your Spirit Guide Speak. You're the host of our Let Your Spirit Guide Speak podcast. So it's kind of the perfect marriage of taking these important writing skills and checklists and all the things that you've put together to help people, and also listening to that guidance, really digging into that discernment. What do I keep? What do I throw out? Part of that, in addition to be writing, it is about listening to that spiritual guidance or your guides and knowing, just that real knowing of what you keep and what you throw out, right?
Right. So yeah, every module has a guided visualization, just a short audio that you can listen to that will lead you through a visualization to connect with your guides, build the relationship with your guides, and absolutely tune in more and more clearly to their guidance, so that you've got that support every single day when you sit down to write, to know, as you say, what to include, what to leave out, and how to tell your story. So those visualizations are priceless, not just in writing your book, but really in honoring yourself and getting to know yourself and your inner wisdom through those guides as well. One of the modules, or one of the lessons in a module in this course, is all about writing about transformation. I call it From Trauma to Transformation, because so often when we're writing a nonfiction book, someplace in it, there's a story, or maybe the whole story is about a challenge that you overcame, or obstacles that you had to face, or a trauma that you experienced at some point in your life. And then the story is really about how you overcame that, how you found hope or inspiration, how you went on and grew as a person or on a soul level. So there's a whole lesson just about going from trauma to transformation. How do you write that story? And I really go, into depth about how you take the particulars of what happened, and then you build on it and you transition into the lesson that you learned. So that's one of the things that you'll learn about writing. But at the same time, the audio visualizations give you the support to remember the light that you are, the love that you are, the soul that you are, so that no matter what you've gone through, you can feel supported and elevated as you write your book.
That's really what I believe makes these courses that you wrote so different than all the other writing courses out there. Because yourself, and I included, and I know everyone that is watching with us, has had that life event, right? We've had something happen, and the hope is that eventually they're all joyful events that put us more firmly on our path, or into understanding the wisdom more. But for most of us, myself included, it was more of a traumatic event that got my attention, but really propelled me in my spiritual path, or opening up to the spiritual guidance and wisdom that's all around, and then wanting to share it. Right? So how beautiful as a spiritual teacher, as a writing teacher and a spiritual teacher, that you know that because you've lived it. Right? It's one thing to tell somebody something, and then it's another to have lived it, to have decades of experience, and then be able to share from that point because you really get it. And the people that join this course and take this course will resonate with that because they get it too. Because what you've experienced, they're experiencing. And that's what's so beautiful about this course. And then it takes all these tips and techniques and processes and experiences and guidance, and it brings it all together in support of helping. You know what? the beautiful part is the writing of the books are not only to share the messages with the world, but I believe that the writing of the books, right, to bring it to completion is a spiritual journey, is a conscious journey all on our own. Whether or not you choose to ever publish it, whether it becomes a bestseller, whether or not, you know, you're the only one that ever reads it. It almost doesn't matter because the journey, right, the journey is happening now.
Yeah, I think that's so important. It's such a great point, because I'll tell you, back several years ago, well, more than several, quite a few years ago, I had some sessions with a healer who I greatly respected. And I was working on a book idea at that point. So during one of the sessions, I told him about the book and, a little bit about where it was going. And he said something that I will always remember. He said, don't ask yourself just what you want your book to be, but ask yourself who you want to be when that book is finished. And I thought that was so profound. Obviously, I've remembered it ever since. And every time I sit down to write a book, I ask myself that question: who do I want to be when this book is finished? Because it's a journey of transformation, just like you're saying. And so often we get caught up into the outcome or the expectations, or thinking that it's only a success if it becomes a bestseller and we sell the movie rights, or whatever that might be. But the truth is that writing changes us. We learn about ourselves. We become different people, and we grow through the whole act of writing. And that's what I think is just so rich and so juicy about, the writing process itself. But then these courses to help support you and help keep bringing you back to that place of, oh, what's going on inside me? In fact, with every module, this is something we haven't really talked about before, but it's just a little thing. But every single module includes just a little handout, a sheet that you can fill out, where you can track what is it that you know about writing that maybe you didn't know before. Mm-hmm. How have you established or developed your relationship with your guides in a way that you haven't before? And what do you know about yourself that you haven't before? So that not only are you tracking how many words you've written or how many pages you've written, but you're really tracking that inner growth and that spiritual growth that's so much a part of this process.
Who do you want to be when your book is finished? What a beautiful, beautiful, I feel like that was just a gift right there. A spiritual tip right there. So that framing, that focusing, when you sit down to write, I feel like when people take this course, they're going to be embraced, right? They're going to have the support they need from the writing, from your revision checklist, and you have a whole resource library in there, and all the 7 modules packed with writing techniques and processes and practices. But then the guided visualizations of tapping into the guidance, and then all of these beautiful supports that you put in along the way, like you just mentioned. And then there's also love notes sprinkled in, from Deb, that you can do it, keep going, how you doing, check-ins with you also, and it's all for you to download, all for you to keep forever for free. So it's at what we call your soul schedule. You do it on your soul schedule, right? Which is kind of really beautiful. So, I feel embraced. I feel embraced talking about it. I feel embraced sitting down, because as I've shared before, I was one of those people, the spiritual guidance starts coming through. I just start typing. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea how to do anything. I'm flying blind, and just how I feel inside, thinking about what this process could look like, what the experience could be, to be really embraced and guided and along the way, is so beautiful. Share with our viewers, Deb, a writing tip. You're sprinkling them in, but really specifically, share one of your favorite writing tips that's in the second part, in the energy of the completing the manuscript.
Right. Yeah, one of my favorites, again, goes back to that idea of what do you include and what do you leave out? Because honestly, that's such a big question in writing a book, especially as you get further along with it. So this tip actually comes from some work that I did with a client back a couple of years ago, and she's writing a memoir. Well, when you're writing a memoir, you're writing about your life, and you've got so many experiences that you could include in your book. So then it really, that question of what do I include and what do I leave out becomes very, very important. she was kind of struggling with that. So I came up with 3 questions that I asked her to ask herself at the beginning of each chapter. Now, you can use these at the beginning of a chapter. You can use them at the beginning of a paragraph or at the beginning of a story that you're sharing. You can use them so many different ways. But the questions are, what I'm going to talk about them in terms of a chapter. What is this chapter about? Just write a sentence or 2 very quickly about what it's about. And then, why is this chapter essential to the book? Why does it have to be there? Why would the book be less of a book if this information weren't there? And then ask yourself a 3rd question: how does this chapter relate to the whole message that I'm writing about? Okay, so those 3 questions: what is this chapter about? Why is it essential? And how does it relate to my bigger message? If you can answer those 3 questions, again, whether it's a chapter, or you could say, what's this paragraph about? Or what's this story about? Why is it essential? And how does it connect to my message? If you can answer those 3 questions, that alone will really keep you on track to make sure that you're including, the essentials and what really adds to the book, and you can more easily let go of what doesn't. So that has been invaluable. I've used it, shared that with all of my writing students since then, and it's made a big, big difference. So I know it'll make a big difference for you too.
So you know what I love about that so much is you're moving really into the world almost of writing coach, right? Developmental editor, right? So you've packed this with so many writing tips and techniques and processes to develop the craft of writing, which we've said is a developed skill, right? And everyone can develop it with the right teachings and the right guidance. But what you just shared is what people pay writing coaches for. You're taking this to you've taken it to a whole other level. As a best-selling and award-winning author and writing teacher, you really know what it really takes to craft a beautiful, well-written book and really bring it to completion. And this is the type of information, these are the types of additional skills and techniques that once a manuscript is traditionally finished, it gets, people send it to a writing coach or to a developmental editor, and those are the questions they ask, right? And you've included it in the course for the author to tap into their own knowing, their own guidance, their own resonance, and do that, do that now. That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's really true because, those basic building blocks, once you've got those down and you keep using them, then you've got what you need to really create a wonderful book. But then there are, I always use the analogy of doing a sculpture. I talk about the fact that a sculptor, what does the sculptor need first? Well, he or she's got to have clay, just that raw material. So that's the first thing that we covered in the first writing course about generating the clay and generating the raw material. But then after the sculptor has that, the next step is to start really shaping and crafting, making it artistic and beautiful. And then toward the end, that's when all of the fine tuning comes in, the polishing, and all of the fine detail. So I feel like these 2 courses wouldn't be complete, if I didn't take you through all of those steps. And that's why I really have included so many coaching techniques as well as basic writing techniques so that you can do that polishing, so that you'll know how. And you'll end up really with a finished product that you can be really, really proud of and that shares the message that you set out to share.
Yeah. So, from Debra Engle and myself, I just want to say that, your book matters, you matter, your message matters, and your book matters. And as we said, whether or not it becomes a bestseller or it is simply part of your journey, right, of this writing process that brings you deeper, right, into your own wisdom through your own processes, it's all perfect. Yeah. It's all perfect. And it all matters. Yeah. It all matters.
It does. Yeah, I can tell you so many stories of, clients that I've sat in my living room with, and we've gone over some of their writing, and it's just so deeply personal. That's another thing that I bring out in this particular course is how to get to that place of vulnerability and honesty and courage in sharing your message. And I can tell you over and over and over again, helping people reach that place in themselves is just invaluable. And there's nothing like writing to help you get there so that healing can take place in addition to all of the writing that you're doing. And I think that's exactly what you're saying, Patricia. And it's one of the reasons that I love this marriage of writing and spirituality, because I know what a difference it can make in every single person who does it.
Yeah, little lights being turned on around, big lights being turned on around the world. So whether you're being called, whether you have spiritual downloads and you just can't keep up with the writing, whether you have inspirational messages, or Deb said, stories of healing, your own personal memoir, anything that would be a nonfiction, conscious, religious, spiritual, consciousness, inspirational type writing, then this course truly is a beautiful support for you. And I encourage everyone to click on the link, go to the free preview. We give the entire first module away for free with all kinds of information in there and a guided visualization in there to connect with your own spiritual guidance. In every module there is one, and try it out and let it help you bring your message, right, your go for message to completed manuscript. So
absolutely. The only thing that I would add is, just, if that question is coming up in anybody's mind about who am I to write a book that matters, know that you are the person to write the book that's calling to you, because nobody else can write it the way that you can. And we really need your voice and your wisdom.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Debra Engle, thank you so much again for joining us for our Writing Your Book That Matters. This was Spiritual Nonfiction 2. And we encourage everyone to visit us at Sacred U, learn.sacredstoriesmedia.com. I'll put the link in the comments and you can go right to the page. So Debra Engle, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And thank you everyone for joining us. So until next time, have a wonderful day.